Most indoor cats are doing just fine, but for a meaningful number of them, the biggest daily risk isn't anything outside the house at all. It's boredom, and the kind of chronic understimulation that quietly builds up until it starts leaking out sideways into behaviors most owners never connect back to the real cause. None of these 6 behaviors are automatically a red flag on their own. A little of any of them is completely normal. But when one becomes constant, or becomes your cat's main outlet, it's usually a sign their daily life isn't giving them enough to actually do. And one of the earliest, clearest clues often shows up while you're fast asleep. 1. The 3 a.m. zoomies. There's nothing inherently wrong with zoomies. Behaviorists sometimes call these bursts frenetic random activity periods, sudden sprints of chaos where a cat needs to dump built-up energy fast. A cat suddenly bolting across the room, skidding into furniture, launching off the couch, isn't malfunctioning. They're releasing energy that had nowhere else to go. Here's the piece worth understanding, though. Cats are naturally crepuscular, meaning their biology is wired toward being most active at dawn and dusk, the exact windows that would have been ideal for hunting in the wild. Over time, a lot of indoor cats gradually shift that activity to match their owner's schedule instead, which usually pushes the big energy release earlier in the day or into the evening. So when the zoomies are happening specifically in the middle of the night, frequently, and around the same time each night, it's often a sign the energy simply wasn't burned earlier, and it's getting dumped whenever the body finally has nothing else competing for its attention. The good news is that this one tends to be very fixable. A short daily play session, 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes split into 2 shorter sessions, is often enough to noticeably reduce nighttime zoomies within days. If the zoomies are sudden, extreme, or paired with other unusual behavior, it's worth ruling out a stress trigger or a medical issue too, but for most cats, this one comes down to giving the energy somewhere better to go before bedtime. 2. Turning your home into a demolition project. Scratched furniture, shredded paper towels, knocked over plants that seemingly had no reason to fall. A lot of owners chalk this up to a cat simply being destructive by nature, but the more accurate read in most cases is a cat with energy and nowhere appropriate to put it, so they're creating their own entertainment, and their taste in entertainment happens to be expensive. This isn't spite, even though it can feel that way when you're staring at a shredded couch arm. A study published in the journal Applied Animal Behavior Science examined the connection between what researchers call environmental complexity and destructive behavior in cats, and found that cats in less stimulating environments showed measurably more of it. In plainer terms, if a cat isn't given something appropriate to do, they'll often find something to do anyway, and it's rarely something you'd have picked for them. This is exactly why scratching posts and scratch-friendly surfaces make such a visible difference. You're not eliminating the instinct, you're giving it a legal outlet. The same goes for rotating toys, adding vertical climbing space, or introducing a few minutes of active play before you leave for the day. The behavior itself is telling you something useful, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. 3. Picking fights with the other pets in the house. Sometimes that same restless energy doesn't get aimed at furniture. It gets redirected at a housemate, another cat, or even an unsuspecting dog who did absolutely nothing to deserve it. Veterinary behaviorists have noted that household conflict between pets frequently rises specifically when animals lack enrichment and independent outlets for their energy. If your cat has started picking fights that seem to come out of nowhere, it's worth asking a slightly different question than, "Why is my cat being mean?" A more useful question is whether one or both animals involved are understimulated, and whether they each have enough separate resources, their own food and water stations, their own resting spots, their own vertical space, so that competition and boredom aren't compounding each other. This kind of conflict often isn't personal in the way it looks. It's frequently a cat whose world feels small, creating excitement in the only way immediately available to them. If tensions are flaring between pets in your home, adding more enrichment, more play, more separate resources, tends to do more to calm things down than any amount of separating or scolding ever will. If any of this is explaining behavior you've never quite understood in your own cat, tap that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps us reach more indoor cat owners who want to actually address the root cause instead of just managing the symptoms. 4. Chewing or eating things that clearly aren't food. Cats explore a lot of the world through their mouths, not just their nose, and for some indoor cats, that exploration tips into chewing or eating non-food items specifically out of boredom, though stress or an underlying medical issue can also be a factor. This pattern has an actual clinical name, pica, a habit in which an animal persistently eats, chews, or craves non-nutritive substances. It's recognized in multiple species, including humans, where it's considered its own behavioral condition. The book The Welfare of Cats, edited by Irene Rochlitz, specifically notes that abnormal chewing habits in cats are frequently associated with boredom and insufficient environmental enrichment. An occasional nibble on a houseplant usually isn't cause for concern, but repeated chewing or eating plastic, cords, or string specifically is a genuine red flag worth taking seriously, both because it often points to unmet stimulation needs and because it carries a real physical safety risk on its own. If your cat is showing this pattern, more enrichment is a reasonable first step, but if plastic, string, or cords specifically are involved, treat it as a safety issue first and get a vet check to rule out anything else going on underneath it. 5. Sitting in the litter box for no obvious reason. This one sounds strange, but it's far more common than most owners realize. Sometimes a cat will simply sit in their litter box, not using it for either of the usual reasons, just occupying it as a place to be. To us it looks bizarre. To a cat, it can actually make a certain amount of sense. The litter box is often one of the most enclosed private spaces in a home, and it's also, understandably, the spot that smells most intensely and specifically like them. For a cat who's stressed, overstimulated by household chaos, or simply looking for somewhere to retreat and shut the world out, an enclosed space with a familiar scent can function as an appealing hideout, even though it's the last place we'd expect a cat to choose to relax. Some research suggests cats may retreat toward enclosed spaces specifically during periods of stress or understimulation, though litter box lounging that's sudden or frequent is also worth checking against possible urinary discomfort or another medical cause, since that can look similar from the outside. If you'd rather your cat not treat the litter box as a hangout spot, a simple fix that works well for a lot of cats is providing a dedicated enclosed alternative, a cardboard box or covered bed specifically set aside as their private retreat space, giving them somewhere else to go when they need to disappear from the world for a while. 6. Hunting things that aren't actually there, chasing dust, pouncing on invisible movement, stalking your shoe across the floor like it's a small, dangerous animal that needs to be dealt with immediately. For cats with strong predatory instincts, an environment with no real prey available doesn't shut that instinct off. It just leaves the cat improvising. This is your cat's hunting sequence, looking for somewhere to go, stalk, chase, pounce, catch, running on instinct even when there's genuinely nothing there to catch. It's not strange or broken behavior. It's a strong predatory drive with no legitimate outlet, doing its best to invent one. The fix here is refreshingly simple compared to some of the others on this list. Meeting that hunting need directly with the right kind of play, toys designed specifically to mimic stalking, chasing, and catching, or even something as basic as a wand toy or a string on a stick, properly supervised, gives that instinct somewhere real to go instead of a shadow on the wall. Across all 6 of these, from the 3 a.m. sprints to the imaginary prey stalking your ankles, the underlying thread is almost always the same. Your cat isn't malfunctioning, and it's rarely personal, spiteful, or random. It's a smart, capable animal with energy, curiosity, and instinct that needs somewhere real to go every single day, and when that outlet isn't provided directly, they'll find one on their own, whether that's furniture, a housemate, a shoelace, or a completely empty patch of floor. The good news, in every single case, is the same. A little more structured stimulation tends to fix more of this than almost anything else you could try.